Good morning. I'm Steve Snyder, entrepreneur in residence at Gesmer Updegrove, and welcome to another episode of Brewin on Broad Street. Gesmer is a full-service law firm for the life cycle of tech companies, and one of the treats for me is being able to work with really special members of the Boston tech ecosystem. And so today I have one of my favorite people here with me. So Melissa Withers, thank you for joining me and joining us.
Thank you for having me. You are also one of my favorite people.
So you might ask, why is she one of my favorite people? And the answer is because not only are you one of the kindest, warmest, most considerate people I know, but you are one of the most passionate and forces of nature that I have ever met. And you have made such an enormous impact on hundreds of companies and thousands of lives. That's why.
Oh my God, stop.
Okay, I'll
you.
stop. So you are the founder, co-founder of RevUp. Over the past 7 years, I think it is, you've funded more than 100 companies. RevUp is a non-equity investment fund. So tell me, what makes RevUp and your portfolio company so special?
Well, I'm biased because I picked them, so they're mine. But really, so many early stage companies, other than the ones in my portfolio, are really special. But maybe I'll tell you a little bit about why my partners and I created RevUp and what we were trying to achieve. And that's kind of a backwards way of telling you about why I think the companies that we invest into are so special and such an important part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So prior to RevUp, my partner and I were very active with a traditional equity fund, and we deployed lots of money to almost 100 companies through a more traditional model. And at the conclusion of that process, he and I were very frustrated by the constraints of that system. So in the equity-only system for early stage investing, the only way an investor can have a profitable investment is if that company gets sold. Well, they can have an IPO, but it doesn't happen that often. And while that may sound really straightforward and simple, what it does is it eliminates the opportunity for an investor to find a productive investment with any of the other outcomes that might happen along the way. And that constraint seemed really farcical. And I think it's also a big part of how venture capital over time, really became so burdened by its biases, and why you see such a little diversity and you see so much kind of insiderism inside that system, is everyone's chasing a really narrow outcome. So when we created RevUp, what we wanted to do was have a model for making impactful, really value-add investments into early-stage companies, but where we could have more than one way to win, so that we could use growth or other kinds of success as a way to produce returns for our fund. And that's what we started back in 2016. So as a consequence, fast forward now through the years, what I really like about our companies is that they dream big and they have huge aspirations, but at their core, they know how to run their company. They understand the market dynamics that create that tension between company and customer, and how to turn that into revenue and growth. And I just love that kind of company.
In addition to investing in your portfolio companies, investing dollars, you also spend enormously valuable time mentoring and guiding. What excites you about that interaction?
I mean, it's a good gig if you can get it, right? Spending your days talking to founders about their hopes and dreams and trying to problem solve for them and make connections. It's a great way to stay young, to stay in touch with everything that's happening around you. I'm pretty much ruined for all other work. So in the spaces in between the investing I do as part of our fund, being able to mentor and volunteer and contribute as an angel investor is just another way to really be present in this environment and expand my network and really have a lot of fun. I mean, there are days when none of this is fun, but I just try not to think about those days.
What's the one piece of advice that you typically give entrepreneurs?
Oh, have you met me? Like my mouth is, I got 99 problems. Lack of advice ain't one. I thought about that a lot over the years, and I mean, I give a lot of guidance. I try to coach, not give advice. Try to illuminate options and opportunities as opposed to be prescriptive. Because the truth is, in early stage companies, there really aren't many truly right or wrong decisions. There are just consequences to those decisions. And what experience teaches you is how to navigate those consequences. So a lot of the advice I give is really just trying to help entrepreneurs understand the consequences of the different choices they may be making. I would say more recently, over the last 2 years, I've been more vocal in advising founders to take care of themselves. There is a lot of rhetoric in the market, like a lot of bullshit about how sexy entrepreneurship is. And there's a real lack of focus on mental health and well-being in this ecosystem. And I've lost friends to that. We've had tragedies because of it. And so I think for first-time founders, or especially founders who aren't coming from great economic privilege, no one is ever going to tell you to take care of yourself. They're going to tell you to die on that hill, to suffer till you make it, to put up and shut up. And I think it's terrible advice that ruins lives. And so I often remind myself to be transparent and candid about the realities of entrepreneurship and the unfun parts of it that you won't really see on TV.
Just within the past day, I saw a LinkedIn quote about just that, and I think I saw your response to just that. And I think that advice is so important.
Yeah, I care a lot about that. And I have a lot of really well-meaning colleagues who just lose track of their own privilege in the system and really don't have a personal connection to the lived experience of someone who doesn't have a safety net, right? Who does worry about caring for others and maybe just doesn't deal with any kind of mental health issue. So I think it's important for more people to talk about not just the big baller fun side of entrepreneurship, but the dark days, the down days when you might lose more than you win.
And I will add empathy to my list of things that I really love about you.
Well, I'm working on it. We'll see.
Tell us about the changes in the role community and geography play in entrepreneurship.
We could have a whole symposium on this, right? When I started professionally investing, geography and proximity was central to every conversation we were having about investing. If you were in Boston, you were looking for funders who were in Boston, and you had better conform to that. Maybe you went to California, right? Maybe you went to Silicon Valley. It was all about being there, being proximate. Most investors wouldn't invest in a company if they weren't geo-proximate to that company. There was just so much focus on geography as a primary determinant for how you would fundraise and what your relationship with your investors would look like. Surely there's been outliers sooner than COVID that were changing this. But the other part of that was actually really great. There were local communities, there were gatherings, you sort of had an in real life community as an entrepreneur that you could lean on. I think over the years, there's been this just tremendous movement away from geo-proximate investing. I think COVID just put the nail in the coffin, wherein we all had to learn how to make investments and manage investments without any in-person contact. I raised and deployed an entire fund, during COVID, and I didn't have an in-person meeting with a single one of my LPs, and I didn't have an in-person meeting with a single one of the companies that I invested into. But I think we haven't quite yet grappled with what that means for communities who have had geography as a primary identity. So I see that here in Boston. Like this is my town. I love this place. I wear my Boston, gear when I travel. But the vast majority of my investments are not in Boston, right? And many of my colleagues are not in Boston, and many of the investing networks that we use now are not geo-proximate. So I think there's a lot of conversation to be had about what does it mean to be from a place, how do we measure contribution, how do we know what we're good at, and then how do we still create opportunities for people to have in real life experiences that are authentic, recognizing that many people are nomads now.
Very true.
Yeah.
I've heard you say that you're turned on by the mysteries of why some things work and why some things don't. Why do some things work and others don't?
well, if I knew, you and I would be, so we'd be on a yacht right now. Like,
We should be.
Yeah, sipping on gin and juice. I think I have said that. I think the answer to the question is just people, right? I mean, people are bananas, right? Humans are so ingenious at finding ways to make mistakes that despite centuries of data about human behavior, and even in light of all the current AI models that really do a pretty good job predicting a lot of things, people are bananas, man. Like, they're a mystery wrapped in a pizza. And so much of what I do as an early stage investor, what any early stage investor does, is you sort of get in the middle of that and you try to like contribute in a meaningful way to increase the number of times people go bananas in a way that produces good outcomes, and sort of be there to pick up the pieces when people go bananas and there are bad outcomes. And I don't want to like go too deep down the rabbit hole, but I'm a really emotive thinker, and I grew up around a lot of process-oriented thinkers, worked in the sciences, and for a very long time, I didn't feel like an emotional approach to problem solving was highly valuable. But when it comes to working with early stage companies and with people, it's really valuable. And you can put the best processes and systems in place, but if you don't understand the people inside of them, those processes and systems will break. And so I'm always really turned on by the mystery of how that unfolds over time.
Substance over form.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that some of my best friends and colleagues are really process-oriented thinkers, right? It's a great compliment. But there's something to be said about, I'm like the anti-Mr. Spock, right? Where I provide I think I put the same kind of clinical efficiency into understanding the emotional aspects of these interactions as someone like Dr. Spock might have put into understanding the rational aspect of these things. I'm more like Inigo Montoya from the Princess Bride than I am like Dr. Spock,
I've also heard you say that you're good with a microphone and terrible on skates. Now, hold on.
I have said that.
You are not just good with a microphone, you are fabulous with a microphone.
Thanks.
But are you really terrible on roller skates skates?
So bad. Growing up in New England, being terrible at hockey, terrible on skates. I tried to be a roller skate waitress at an A&W restaurant. Yeah, I'm really, really, really bad on roller skates. And so and that actually just came. It was like something someone said to me years ago. They're like, "Yeah, well, you can be good with a microphone, but you're never going to be good on roller skates." So yeah, I am very athletic, really good at a lot of things, but terrible on anything that's like with wheels on my feet or blades, I guess. Yeah, I'm terrible at it. Terrible.
So my timing wasn't good 30 seconds ago, because my response to you should have been, "As you wish."
Oh, exactly. You killed my father, prepare to die.
There you go.
Yes, exactly.
I love
We're getting
that.
so old that
It's one of my favorite movies.
I really think that we are entering into a time when a very small number of people are still will get that reference. So I'm so glad for us that we can use it one last time.
I love that movie.
Today. Yeah, me too.
Let's shift completely. Tell us about your hobbies.
Hobbies. I have a lot of hobbies. I love to be outdoors. I love to be outdoors. But I have one hobby that over the last couple of years has become a pretty significant part of my life. So I took up boxing a few years ago. I know you know this. I had my first sanctioned fight 2 years ago. I had my last fight just under a year ago, both of them in Atlantic City, which is as kooky and crazy as it sounds. And the thing about boxing that's been really additive to my life is it's an introduction and an entry point into a community that is completely orthogonal to entrepreneurship, right? Like the people I interact with, the people I train with, the people I work with, amazing people that would be very difficult to meet through work or the normal ways that you meet people. And so it's really broadened my horizons. Certainly the physical aspect of combat sports is great, as somebody that wants to sort of not like become the crypt keeper and fall apart. But then the fear and terror of getting into the ring with someone that wants to kill you is very humbling. And it's been a really powerful way to remind myself, of how a lot of the founders sometimes feel like when we sit down for a chat. Like I can imagine sometimes getting in the ring with me, may feel a bit intimidating, but I'm really there to work with you. And most of the time when you're boxing, you're training, you're not trying to kill each other, right? You're working together to learn and grow. And it's really been humbling to be on on the receiving end of some pretty hard punches because it just, well, one, it makes you feel alive. It's very a Fight Club in that way. But I do think it's helped reorient me around kind of what it means to be intimidated, how it feels to be on both sides of that power dynamic, and then how to be competitive and have a lot of sport in it, but also find ways to work with people. So when the bell rings, like both of you feel like you got something good out of it.
I have a piece of advice for our audience. Never, ever, ever sneak up on Melissa.
That's totally true. It is. I nearly laid you out that time.
You did.
Yeah. Yeah. It's. I don't fight in real life. I've never had a real life fight. I'm a total cupcake. I mean, you know that, right? Like I'm all bark, no bite. But from a reflex perspective, yeah, if you come up behind me, I really might lay you out with.
Oh, and I did that in the nicest way.
You did. The most perfectly welcome, appropriate way. I just couldn't quite see you, and I did almost lay you out. That is true. But I didn't. I caught myself. But yeah, don't sneak up behind me. It's a bad idea.
Good advice.
Pretty much.
So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all that you do and everything that Gesmer does for our ecosystem. It's really important to have people who are there for the long haul, right? Like marathoners, not sprinters, people that are there every day, even when other people don't show up, and really appreciate over the last decade all of the things that you and your colleagues have done, both professionally, but also personally, and providing a platform and framework for many of us to be together. And you pick up the tab a lot, which is really awesome. So thanks also for that.
Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
How does our audience find you?
Oh
What's
God,
your email address?
I'm like, my phone number is written on like every bathroom wall in Boston.
Let's not give your phone number.
No, you can
email address.
You can find me. I'm easily easily accessible online. You can find me at RevUpFund.com. You can find me through LinkedIn, and mostly can find me through you because you know how to give out an email address when you need to. So pretty easy to find.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us as we end another episode of Brewin on Broad Street.